Someone asked this, and I'm going to try to answer this question. What's the difference between the sensitivity as a trauma survivor, because we are hypersensitive and hypervigilant, and the sensitivity in an awakening? How do we know as a trauma survivor that you're going through an awakening, and how do we know it is a remnant of your trauma? Both are sensitivity, right? But the sensitivity that is of a trauma survivor is fear-based, and the sensitivity in a spiritual awakening is a sensitivity where all of your senses are more alive, they're more vibrant. So you're sensitive to everything that is happening around you. You're sensitive to the energy, you're sensitive to the energy of others. And in an awakening, you will only pick that which you are attuned to. In a trauma survivor's case, you are hypervigilant. Here, there is a lack of levity. A spiritual awakening gives us levity. Levity is, it gives us a feeling that our back is covered, a feeling that I am being looked after, a feeling that, wow, I can relax. And this is exact opposite to a trauma survivor. A trauma survivor is always on edge. You don't feel safe enough to explore. As an infant, as long as the needs are being met, not only that the physical needs are being met, but the emotional needs alongside warmth, that infant will grow into a toddler who wants to explore, knowing there's no fear, nothing to fear in the environment, because my back is covered. Mama's there or papa's there, my back is covered, right? Now, when you have experienced and you have been burnt by that experience in terms of your trauma, or it has lodged inside of you, you don't want to experience it. And no matter how much you even try to experience it, as a trauma survivor, you'll call upon yourself all those things that remind you of your trauma. So it's extremely, extremely difficult. You're hypervigilant, you're hypersensitive, but there is no levity. That levity will not come as long as that trauma is not dislodged. And the way to dislodge the trauma is you acknowledge it, you integrate it. But is it that simple? No. Because so many of you would have acknowledged it, you've integrated it, you've gone to this one, that one, and the other. You've gone to so many healers, so many therapists, you've tried everything. And yet that trauma remains, right? So some of you who are trauma survivors may then, and they say that this is a very ripe stage for you to experience an awakening. More likely a Kundalini awakening than a spiritual awakening. But if you've gone through a path of self-discovery, and part of it is also you understanding the mind, the brain, is also you unfolding with an awareness who you are, the source of you, and maybe you have even been to a spiritual teacher and you have been touched by that, right? It has created a profound experience in you. Now, when that has happened, not only is there a spiritual awakening, but there is a Kundalini awakening too, although they don't have to go hand in hand. What you're most likely to experience is a Kundalini awakening, because a lot of trauma survivors won't even know. Some of us are stuck in that mode, and it is so difficult to get out of it. Not because we're not trying, not because we are lazy, or we don't want to heal ourselves, or we don't want to get out of this kind of thinking, but because we are incapacitated by that trauma. That trauma incapacitates the brain. So if you know somebody who's suffering from this, please be kind and loving towards them, because you don't know what it's like to go through trauma unless you've gone through it, and it is a very, 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 very difficult place. But when you are a trauma survivor and you go through a spiritual awakening, your sensitivity, your hypersensitivity will redirect to all the senses, and you'll be able to experience it all fully. At least you'll start to experience it all fully, as opposed to with the blinkers on of that trauma mode, because everything that you'll see will set you off. So even when you start going towards something and it's making you happy and you've reached a sweet spot, the minute someone says anything that doesn't quite fit in with what you're expecting, bang, out, cut them out, right? Because you're still hypervigilant. That hypervigilance will start to calm down with an awakening. So the sensitivity in a trauma survivor is very much one that lacks levity, but can be transformed. And the sensitivity that is in a spiritual awakening is one which has a backup. It has levity. You're experiencing everything in a full way. You have so much levity that you want to explore. You'll want to keep exploring. Now, if you're somebody who's gone through trauma, it might take that much longer, but you will get there. Now, if you put trauma survivor and Kundalini awakening together, that's either going to break you or make you. Yeah? It'll have to be coupled with awareness, hopefully a sort of spiritual dimension, or not a spiritual dimension. You don't have to be holier than thou. You just simply have to know the mechanics of how you operate. You have to understand only what is my body, what is my, whether there is a soul or not, that's a different question, but who am I? How do I operate? How do I operate this machinery? This is a machine. We are in a machine. But although it's a machine, it's not mechanical. We want to make it non-mechanical, not to operate it like a machine, but just as a metaphor for you, for us to understand what are the mechanics, what are the dynamics of how we work, without bringing any, you don't have to bring any spirituality into this. But if there is one, it'll just give you a little bit of safety. It'll give you levity, like you know that your back is covered, and then you'll start to explore. The sensitivity that is in a trauma survivor is one of hypervigilance, is one of expecting danger. The sensitivity of somebody who's going through a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini awakening is very similar to that, but you're transforming it because there's a new paradigm of consciousness that has already been set as a result of the awakening that's going to push everything out. With a trauma survivor, if there's no awakening, there'll be no push and pull. You're pretty much on hypervigilance almost all the time. You're hypersensitive, but it's a sensitivity that works against any form of exploration, and we are stuck. It's one that is stagnant. During a spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, you can also go through that stagnation when we're still in that push and pull of that trauma until we are ready to disown it and let it go. Sometimes even the worst things that are not good for us become our habits because we're so used to that, right? We're so used to living. Sometimes if you're so used to living in a mess, you don't know any better. And if it's not messy, you'll feel uncomfortable. And so you'll keep calling on to different things so that there's a mess because that's what you're comfortable in. So to get through this is for you to get out of your comfort zone, dare to explore, knowing your back is covered with or without an awakening. So much love. Take care. Drop me a comment with any questions and I'm happy to look at them.